from all, to all, with all, for all, through all. We thank the gods of creation. We thank the ancestors. We thank the forces of nature. And we thank the earth. We thank them for their direction, their protection, their guidance, for keeping us, showing us, allowing us to know and enjoy life to its fullest, now and later.
Black people who once loved with the slow march of time. Time was ours to hold in the soft, love-warm chambers of our hearts. And once we, the Afro mommies and daddies of a sun world, would turn our strands of hair into antennas to tune in the juju madness and syncopated love rhythms of Africa. And we loved with time, and we took the time to love, and with the right time we loved, and we loved time after time. Will we ever love again? Will we ever love again? Will we really ever love again? Or will we just sit and rot away with the brighter tomorrows in the skag field, rat-cluttered halls of our minds?
Black people, what y'all gonna do? Black people, what y'all gonna do?
Will the real black people please stand up?
Let our rejoicing rise high as listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us facing.
Jumbo Habari, and welcome once again to Our Story, the program that makes being black positive, relevant, desirable, and true to a lost nation in America. A program that speaks to the historical significance of the original people of the earth. Our Story Network takes pride in setting itself away from other programs that centers on entertainment or rhetorical mumbo-jumbo that misdirects your attention onto other things that causes you to exhaust your resources and renders you brain dead. It is Our Story who talks about commitment to you and your people. It is Our Story that champions the reestablishment of the black genius that once ruled the world. It is Our Story that focuses you in on the rewards of black advocacy, black activism, black involvement, and black power. It is Our Story that encourages survival of the black race and solicits your involvement to that end. Black folks must remember, race first is the call of the day. And we as a people must, I say must, take the pledge if we, the people of the original race, expect to survive. As I take the many lessons I have received over the years and reflect upon them by sharing these lessons with my brothers and sisters, I realize the power that we as a people possess for the most part has gone unnoticed. The masses of black folk who have been rendered lost and disenfranchised from the meaning and mission our ancestors intended for us to embrace is all but depleted. It is because of the mission and meaning of the life of our ancestors that I realize how blessed as black people we really are. What fascinates me are the many gifts I have been granted, which allows me to distribute the information onward to you. As always, that message begins and ends with the importance of blackness. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Greetings, friends, comrades, family, the inquisitive onlookers, and our beloved viewers. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to Our Story Network. We thank you for being with us this evening, and we trust you will take something of value away with you after the program. That is the aim and goals of Our Story Network, the network that leads the pack in modern-day communications and ancient and modern education. I say ancient and modern education because of the many errors we have found in the translations and interpretations of ancient records. The modern revelations by new black scholars have opened the window of discovery that has allowed the truth and knowledge originally disseminated by the black masters of education to flourish once again. This is one of the stumbling blocks that has kept black people from rebuilding their greatness and recapturing their birthright. A roadblock that is the subject of our show this evening. But before that, I want to thank Brother Johnny for taking time to captain this ship so I could move freely about to gain an insight and content on our position as black people in America. Thank you, Brother Johnny, and thanks to your guest who made our story even bigger. Tonight, we are going to take a look at what I have been up to during my absence from the show. First and foremost, I traveled to Tuskegee University to visit the George Washington Carver Museum. I had not been there since the latest remodeling and new additions to the museum. I found a big change in the content of the museum and the supportive tour of Booker T. Washington's home. It has been a number of years since I last visited the Black Historic Landmark, so you can imagine the degree of excitement that surrounded me. Unfortunately, I must report a lessening of importance given to both exhibits and the tour. Since the National Parks Service is in charge of the day-to-day care and maintenance of the exhibits and the home, I can honestly say we are being shortchanged by the lack of parental oversight. That parental oversight is, of course, black folk being in charge of the exhibits. I found several of the original exhibits that were there for years have been withdrawn and placed in the archives. Exhibits I thought were important to the black culture. For example, the original laboratory Dr. Carver used at Tuskegee. Even the Tuskegee experiment and the Henrietta Lacks experiment were reduced to a mere honorable mention status. Before, the entire stories were told and the route of investigative study was nicely laid out for anyone to explore at the museum. But now, just mere remnants of a history necessary in the telling of what truly happened to black people in America. The Booker T. Washington tour was shortened from more than an hour and 30 minutes to less than 30 minutes. Many of the exhibits in the house have been removed and no mention of their significance remained a part of the tour. The Park Service has not trained the new tour guides as efficiently and effectively as those in the past. The knowledge levels are not as broad as the tour guides from 10, 20, or 30 years ago. But the accomplishments still linger in the spirituality of Black success are hovering over the entire campus. It goes without saying that I paid my respects to the grave sites of both Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver, two men who made major contributions to the advancement of Black people. I must say, I have become comfortable with my mortality and feel blessed to be able to return home where my ancestors worked and died so that we may know what freedom is. Unfortunately, many Blacks believe they are free today, but the truth is clear. We are still on a journey towards freedom. My travels led me to discover another George Washington Carver museum for 120 miles south of Tuskegee University is where the G.W.Carver Interpretive Museum in Dothan, Alabama. This tribute to the greatest Black scientist of early America puts the right touch on the meaning of tribute. Since they were sponsoring their monthly small business initiative, I joined in on the festival atmosphere that makes Black people special throughout the world. The people of Dothan are typically Southern Black people where everyone is family. Surprisingly, I met several people from other states visiting the festival. The fact that the entire city came together in presenting this free festival is much different from the norms here in Louisiana. Festivals in Louisiana tend to be profitable ventures, while family fun is taking a back seat to making money. I wonder how many years will it take for people to begin to realize profit is not the only motivator in life. Even though I participate in for-profit festivals, I believe there's a need to be family gatherings to extend the lost links of social appreciation that for-profit events lose in its execution. Let me go out on a limb here. The mayor and the chief of police here in New Orleans seem to be baffled as to what it will take to decrease the murder and crime rate here. I am convinced they know what it takes, but as most profit-oriented people don't want to yield to the fact that for-profit within itself pollutes and affects the purpose of creation. Just think, with all of the talk of progress of the industrialized world, Black people who were gifted with more technology than the world has ever seen chooses to dismiss the significance of following a technological path. As we, in the 21st century, are faced with life-threatening choices because of technology, can now realize why the Black population chooses to detour from the technological path. But as the mayor and the police chief, as well as most others throughout the world, refuse to acknowledge the destruction technology is making by acting like it is a mystery as to why and what to do about the death and destruction to an environment we now live in. And what about the destruction we have condemned our children and their children to live in. Very little is said about this. So to the mayor and police chief, I say, look back to the days when life wasn't so demanding and material things were not so important to cause crime and murder just for some people to say they have the things in life others have said are essential for life. It seems as if we have all forgotten the only essential things in life are food, shelter, and security. Past that, to be able to enjoy life is the only other item we need in life. Now, this is the most important part of the trip. Brothers and sisters of the womb, and I say womb because it seems as if some of us don't think we came from a woman's sexual organ. I raise this because we have so much confusion about what is real and what is false. Some of us even take the term false to mean fake. The same way Trump says false is fake, to create disbelief about something being true. So many people have taken the truth and mischaracterized it to fit a certain lifestyle. That is the primary cause for the corruption we are plagued with today. This lends reason to why our crime and murder rates are so high. The reasons why there is no equal justice or equal access to the gifts that were given to the creators of this planet at the point in time of creation. It is a crime to have to pay for water. It is a crime to have to pay for those things that have been granted as gifts from what many of us consider gods. Yet, we pay happily to say we can afford the, quote, better things of life, unquote. What I experienced this past weekend has reignited the spark that caused me to ask questions of why are black people treated as if they were bad stock or aliens from outer space. The answers are clear. Black people are the original people of the earth. Therefore, they are the chosen people of the creators. As we can see, this is what reality was for most blacks in America less than 200 years ago. The fact that slavery has not ended only gives way to an evolutionary process that speaks to the current treatment of blacks in America. The Legacy Museum points to the progression of slavery in years past in the current enslavement now called mass incarceration. This is brought to light by the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. It is through their work that Ida B. Wells' commentary comes to life. And her commentary is, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. Following the advice of Sister Wells, we begin with our first exhibit. This is the scene of a spectator sport known too well to most Americans. Black men, also an occasional white black woman or black child being lynched. Lynchings were support or sports to the white population of America, and today we still see the lynchings of blacks through many different methods. As Thomas Moss was being lynched, his last words were, and I quote, "Tell my people to go west. there is no justice for them here. My question is, how far west can we go to find justice? Surely not far enough from the recent history of the European. Now, to use Ida B. Wells's advice, let us look at the jars of dirt that have been bloodied by the death of lynchings. These jars are in remembrance of all of the black people who have been hung for whatever reason white America decided to lynch them. Thus, the birth of the Legacy Museum, a birth that honors the womb of creation, which channels life from one dimension to the next dimension, from one generation to the next generation. The tube of immortality. The American flag, the symbol of slavery and mass incarceration, the symbol that brands this country as a defeater of liberty for all and justice only for those who can afford it. The country that wants to be great except for the fact that this country was built on death and destruction of another civilization before it. A country to this very day still refuses to recognize the rights and liberties of non-whites. Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, hanging from the poplar tree, was an account of what was going on in the South during the Jim Crow years. But to no surprise, strange fruit was popping up in the northern and western states as well. Let us make no mistake about the culture that perpetuates the disfiguring, dismantling, and the extinguishing of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, i.e., the continuation of life as it was intended at the time of creation. For us to be bold enough to suggest the cruel and inhumane treatment of all living things in a world controlled by people with less melanin is to say what many would call racist, is in fact only pointing out the obvious. Is it racist to point out the obvious? Certainly not. The people with less melanin have no hesitation saying people with more melanin are non-humans or less intelligent than people with less melanin. So why are we, as blacks, afraid to point to the one of the worst behaviors in modern times? That of falsely labeling the characters of other living things. I personally believe America is better off with institutions like the Legacy Museum. One of the best things that can happen is for us to be reminded that we came from slave stock. To forget what happened to us as a people just a few hundred years ago gives way for us to forget who we really are and who we were, so important enough in the first place for Europeans to remove us from our homeland and relocate us to the West. To see reminders like this one points out the places where we were stripped of our humanity should be the spark that ignites the memory of how great a people we are to have another people less capable than we to need us to do everything, including thinking for them, to allow them to survive in a world they were never created to be a part of. I tell you, when I saw this sign, I knew I was in good company. To reiterate the point that non-melanin people will always hunt down and incarcerate people with melanin is very vivid and revealing by their tone and manner concerning how they believe the world should be organized. More than 50 years ago, there was a call to desegregate the school systems of America. If we look back to those days when blacks were forced to attend schools provided by a government that believed in segregation, blacks learned more and advanced further within our own ranks than we have achieved through forced integration. Blacks owned more businesses, controlled more land, and demanded more respect than blacks have today. It is because of the misdirection of the correct order of things, that is, things as organized at the point in time of creation. This is why we find ourselves in the world at a disadvantage, because of the imbalance the planet is experiencing under the current stewardship on this earth. Why is this? Because non-melanin people believe they hold the birthrights to the stewardship of this planet, when in fact it was and is the people with melanin who were granted the stewardship in the beginning of time to this planet. And what do the non-melanin people do? They continue to incarcerate the people with more melanin at accelerated rates. A brief footnote here. The Equal Justice Initiative, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, used many photos from several prisons and jails located here in Louisiana. The picture you are watching was taken in New Orleans at the OPP, or the Orleans Parish Prison. I must say this is the first 501c3 that I personally know of that has spent the money on a project that addresses the truth and the realities of black life in America. A special shout out to Brian Stevenson, Executive Director, for making this museum a reality. If we, as black people, had more memorials like this, then maybe we, as black people, would not be so lost and confused. Maybe if, as black people, thought a little more about our children and not so much time about being concerned about alien children crossing the border, then just maybe we would have as many of our own children locked away and separated from our mothers as we actually do. There are not enough reminders of our own plight and social injustice for us to be conscious about our own conditions and positions, as opposed to worrying about the plight of others. With so many distractions, we as a people are separated from our own immortality. We are so focused on the mortality rate than the longevity of our people that we forget all about the importance of ancestry. In forgetting the past, we cannot have a future. Forgetting who we are, we cannot remember our youth. If we forget our youth, we forget our creators. In forgetting the warehousing of our ancestors, we ignore the warehousing of our children today. By forgetting the warehousing of our children, we forget the reality of who we are and where we are. Once we forgot who we are and where we are, we forget the path to freedom. Maybe this is why W.E.B. Du Bois capsulated what Harriet Tubman said about saving more slaves. I could have saved more slaves if only they knew they were slaves. This is pretty much where blacks are today. We could have saved more of our children if only we knew they were being taken from us because we are the God's chosen children. Maybe that is why we see the slaves walking free only to feel the sunshine momentarily, then returning and walking back to the shackles and chains where the slaves feel comfortable. Brothers and sisters, most of us have no idea how much harm we are doing to ourselves and to our children by not knowing who we are and where we came from. By not taking charge of our own mortality, we are contracting the responsibilities of our fate to others who are not so kind to our needs and considerations. Is this where you want to be today, tomorrow, and forever? And I want to say that my experience in Alabama, going through the many museums, did something to brighten that spark again in me that has allowed me to focus and understand the need for all of us to stand up and begin to be truthful to ourselves. We're losing our children. We're losing our families because we are not remembering the past, what has happened to us. And we cannot have a future if we do not know where we have come from. This is the beginning of going into the lynching museum that is part of the Equal Justice Initiative. This is their second location where you have figures that depict us as we once were, that will lead us up to the top of the hill where many names wait for us. I'm looking at this work of art, and it reminds me much of the artwork that I saw when I was in Africa many years ago. And when you look into their faces, there is something that speaks to you, that shows you that there is a certain spirit within these images that touches you. And at the top of the hill, you can see where the names of all of the lynchings that have happened, that they were able to either uncover the names or the fact that a lynching took place. There are many of these columns up there that have unknown. The name is unknown, but it has been recorded that there was a lynching there. And it's interesting to see how across this country will find names of people that very, very possibly we know a family member of theirs. But if you're like me, the truth of the matter is we're all family anyway. These are our people. These are our monuments. These are our memorials. We have to understand that there are other ethnic groups that take time and resources to make sure that everyone in their family not only knows their history, not only knows about the terror that has happened to them, but they celebrate it. You realize we're the only people on the face of this earth that is not cherishing our history, that's not teaching our history. And they do this so that it will not happen again. So what does that say about black people? We don't talk about it because we know it's going to happen to us again. You know, something came up the other day that made me realize that there's a lot of black people who are educated today but cannot read. I've been contemplating setting out on a mission to teach black people how to read. I'll venture to say that 95% of the black population in this country cannot read. Now, I know I hear people just disagreeing with that. But when I say they cannot read, I'm saying this. Black people are not able to read the handwriting on the wall. Do you understand what that means? That means you are unable to read the signs and symbols of things to come. And because you aren't able to read, terrible things happen to us. Do you understand that we have been put in a position today in America that black people are less important than they've ever been? Do you realize the value, your value, has decreased tremendously in the last 20, 30 years? Are you aware that you have no real culture of your own, that you have embraced and accepted someone else's culture as yours? Do you realize that the same thing that happened to the indigenous people in this country more than 100 years ago and had led all the way up to their final incarceration is happening to blacks today? Do you know one of the reasons why they were able to calm the indigenous people down is because of something that they call fire water. It's alcohol. Today, we call it crack. We call it cocaine. We call it marijuana. Now, I know a lot of you don't see anything wrong with smoking marijuana. I could agree with you if marijuana wasn't making you docile, making you capable of being led to the slaughterhouse. We, as black folks in this country, have no need, no reason to use any intoxicants that's going to alter our state of thinking, our state of mind, our state of being. We're going to go to the phones. We want to thank you for watching us this evening and those of you that are calling in to participate. Caller, we thank you for watching and participating. What is your question or comment?
It's a comment.
Yes, what is it?
Hold on. I just wish they would do something to take care of everything that's going on in the world, like the killing. I wish they would at least have more police officers out and about and just do something, because we need safety.
What you need to do, and this is not just you, this is for all of us. What we need to do is to begin studying who we are, where we came from. Use that knowledge to build our own temples and to build our own pathway to freedom, instead of letting someone else either suggest or demand what is right and what is good for us. Do you realize how much free time black folks have in this country, in this city? When you're out partying, having a good time, don't you believe there's something else that you could be doing that would be more productive for you as an individual and us as a people? That is the whole purpose of this presentation this evening, to stop and get us to think, understand, and realize that if we are not putting in the work, we are cheating ourselves, our children, our entire community. And that is something all of us need to take inventory of, because all of us could do more than we are doing. But we are so caught up with busy work that someone else is providing for us to keep us away from where we are and what we're doing. Thank you, caller. I appreciate it.
And wait, I also wanted to say I keep busy because I work for the New Orleans Saints.
Well, I think you could be a little busier trying to get yourself acclimated to our culture, our history, and more committed to putting yourself into a position where you teach yourself in order to train other blacks about blackness. Appreciate that, my brother. Take care. Let me see if this is a call. I'm gonna, Habari. Hold on for a second. We have someone who wants to make a comment. Thank you for watching. What is your comment?
Thank you for watching. What is your comment?
You have to turn the TV down first, though.
You have to turn the TV down first, though.
Thank you. Go ahead. What's your comment?
First of all, it's not the police or the governor or the mayor is going to change this situation. You need the saints of God to turn down their place fast and free. Like the Bible says, my people which are called by my name will humble themselves, fast and free, turn from their wicked ways. Then I will heal the land. See, with all this going on, the corruption, that's because people have turned away from the Lord.
Now, if I could, are you aware that the religion that you practice was given to us by our slave masters to subjugate us? Are you aware of that? And that it is still subjugating us and keeping us from knowing who our true ancestors are, who our true gods are, and what our true religion is?
You serve our true God.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. If you research it, you will find that the Christian religion, as it is taught today, was given to us by our oppressors so they could subjugate us, make us grateful slaves, and to this very day we are still tiptoeing through the tulips, believing that we have found salvation. All you have to do is just research it, and you will find that that is true. We appreciate you calling, and thank you for watching. That is something that many of us, most of us, are afraid to tackle. Religion. And that is because it has been taught to us as something that we need to be afraid of. We have another caller. Caller, we appreciate you watching. What is your question or comment?
My comments are, you have a nice show, and you're talking about, but why are you always talking down, trying to and try and bring us up? Stop telling us what we're doing bad. Tell us how to get out of it. You said we said the police is arresting us. Tell us how to stop to get out of this.
All right, my brother, I'm going to go over it again. Thank you. I appreciate that. What we need to do to get out of the conditions and situations we are first of all, we have to know who we are and where we came from. And the only way we can do that is through study. The second thing we have to do is we have to make a commitment to ourselves, our children, and our community to take us out of this situation of bondage that we are still in. I showed you earlier the enslavement process that they are sharing with us at the memorial in Montgomery, and they very specifically show you how that enslavement process is alive and well today because of the incarceration of black people in this country. We are still slaves. We have not found freedom yet. We have another caller. Caller, we appreciate you watching. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, greetings. I was elated to see some of the photographs you had of some of the markers where they had slaughters and stuff like that in the state. And I am actually in the process, well, I've been ill lately, but I'm in the process of researching a massacre that occurred in 1876 in East Feliciana Parish, West Feliciana Parish in Wilkerson County, Mississippi. I have some ancestry from Wilkerson County, Mississippi, and we've heard through oral history of a massacre that occurred. But I've finally come across the primary source documents, what occurred. You had these groups of former Confederate whites, formed militias, and went roaming from parish to parish, raping, killing, slaughtering, and there even was a congressional hearing in Jackson, Mississippi. And when I looked at the minutes of the congressional hearing, I saw my great-great-grandfather mentioned as being one of the organizers of the blacks to resist the militia. So there's a lot of stuff that occurred during that Reconstruction period that hasn't been uncovered, a lot of stuff. And there were several massacres occurred all over the South. So I was kind of elated when I did see that. And also, I don't have time to hang up now. I just disagree with you about the role of the Christian religion that has played for us. The slave master may have intended for it to make us submissive, but the historical record shows it did not. We used that to resist the revolt. Nat Turner and Denmark Vestas are examples. But I'll hang up and continue to listen. Thank you.
Appreciate you, my brother. Thank you. Listen, the number up there, they're going to put the number up there. I'm going to tell you to give me a call, get in touch with me, because I would like to go in depth with you about the how the Christian religion played its part and continues to play its part to this very day. There has been some positive things that the church has done for us. I'm not just totally taking that away. But what I'm saying to you is we need to know how it has been used to subjugate us if we intend to break these binds of enslavement. Let me read this to you, my brother, and all the rest of the people that are listening. This is from Mary Bethune. This is one of her quotes. If we have the courage and tenacity of our forebears, who stood firmly like a rock against the lash of slavery, we shall find a way to do for our day what they did for themselves in their day. Do you understand? That means that we have to find the courage to stand up. We're not standing up. We are laying down, rolling over, and playing dead. That's what I'm pointing out. The gentleman that called in, what can we do? We can stand up. We can begin to learn the truth that has been kept away from us, and then begin to share that truth with our brothers and sisters throughout the community. I want to thank you for your indulgence this evening. I'm telling you, and to the brother that called, I just want to say this to you. Tuskegee University has a lot of documents that you can probably use, because I found out that the museum in Montgomery utilized Tuskegee to get a lot of the lynchings that were that's there, to get them recorded from the materials that they have at Tuskegee. So you might be able to contact them and see what they have on the revolt that you were mentioning and speaking of. But back to my audience, I want to thank you for being here. The old clock on the wall just runs. We have the fastest hour in television right here. I want to remind you that you can hear me on WBOK Monday mornings from 10 to 12, back here every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30. You can catch us on YouTube, Our Story TV show on YouTube, and you can catch all of the shows this year. I want to thank you for being with us. I say stay strong, stay black, but most importantly, stay committed to blackness. Till we meet again, brothers and sisters, Uhuru Sasa Ungawa. All right, man, that was...
Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song victory is won. Listen to me now, Yo, before Dr. Dre, there was Dr. James, welding cords around a copper frame. We sing songs, not for the accolades, to lift voices like a helicopter blade. High in the listening skies, my eyes glisten and tears drop down like rain. Not from the pain, from the joy of how far we came. My brainstorms are designed to celebrate our reign. The collective, monuments erected, continents affected, presidents elected, ancestors making moves with the music we've been blessed with. We use it to keep communities connected. Through harmonies, a harmony is collected. Reaping the fruits our foremothers invested. Lift every voice till freedom has manifested. Come on, yeah, lift every voice till freedom has manifested. Come on, listen, lift every voice till freedom has manifested. Come on. Sing a song, yeah, full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Come on. Sing a song, full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. It's a new day. Let us march on till victory is won. Till victory is won. This is victory music. Come on, I hope you feel it.